battle in San Francisco between the old guard Jimmy G, who has taken the Niners to a Super Bowl, has taken them to an NFC Championship game, but has yet to take them to the promised land for a ring. Trey Lance has only started 2 games. He's only appeared in 6 games, but he is the guy we presume is going to be the starting quarterback of the future. Question is that future now, or is Jimmy Garoppolo, who has not yet been traded, is Jimmy G still going to have an opportunity to win this starting job? Let's bring in Charles Davis, looking at position battles for each team in the NFC West. Let's begin with the 49ers. Look, I don't know where we're at here, because I think you go back a few months and we would all think Jimmy Garoppolo is probably playing for another team. They have not been able to trade him. So where does this quarterback battle stand in your eyes?
Well, Chris, first of all, let me applaud that your availability is never in question. So that part is very, very good.
Only on Fridays.
But when we talk about this quarterback battle, it always comes back to Jimmy G versus Trey Lance. But I see it just a little bit differently, because I think in this quarterback battle for San Francisco, it's Trey Lance's job to take, because they drafted him number 3 last year and they want to get him going. But he's not battling Jimmy G as much as he's battling, I think, the rest of the San Francisco 49ers team. And I don't mean it in a battle in terms of they don't want him, but he's got to prove to them, because this team loves Jimmy Garoppolo. I mean, think back to the NFC Championship run last year and think back to how the players commented about having Jimmy G as their quarterback, how strongly they stood behind him, how Deebo Samuel is one of the front runners and one of the leaders in talking about him. So it's not just Trey Lance taking over and being handed the job, if indeed it comes to that. George Kittle himself has said Trey Lance, hey, he can be a big-time player. He just needs to play. But the big deal is this team likes playing for Jimmy Garoppolo. And most of the time in football, there is an old adage, the team picks the quarterback by how they play around him. This team does play well for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Do you think it would be better for the 49ers if they could just trade Jimmy Garoppolo and get something in return, rather than have him still there on the roster with those players saying, hey, the other guy in the locker room, he'd be better for us right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think it'd be better for all concerned if you don't have to deal with that, because we've seen it too many times, haven't we, Chris, where that guy who's kind of the favorite of everyone is still around. Look, if you just kind of flip it a little bit, in Cleveland, do you think there's any chance, no matter what goes down with Deshaun Watson, if he's suspended for 5 or 6 games, that Baker Mayfield will step in and play during that time frame? No, it's better for him not to be there. That's a divorce that has to happen. I'm not sure San Francisco's at that point. Jimmy G would handle it better, but I think you make an excellent point. Do you really want him standing over there if Trey Lance is having a rough patch?
Such a tough division once again. Last season we saw the 49ers take on the Rams in the NFC Championship game. The Rams win that game, go on to win the Super Bowl. What position battle interests you the most for the Rams?
Let's go back to their running back, and it's RB1, because Darrell Henderson took over last year and carried them for much of the season when Cam Akers was out with an Achilles tear. And then Cam Akers made one of the most miraculous, incredible returns to action within one season after a torn Achilles that we've seen in NFL history. So that battle is on for RB1. Personally, I think if Cam Akers is fully healthy, he is the guy. They draft him to be that person. A guy who can run it inside, can run it to the perimeter, can catch it out of the backfield. We saw him throw it last year in the playoffs against Arizona. There's not much he can't do. One of the top guys coming out of high school, would have been a better player in college if Florida State had been up to their normal standards. He is that guy. But Darrell Henderson's awfully dependable as well. That'll be the battle in Los Angeles as far as I'm concerned.
Where are we at with running backs right now in the NFL? I feel like we need to take a temperature check every year or two, because the position continues to be devalued by some. Yet there are teams out there like the Tennessee Titans who have a Derrick Henry who is, in fact, a difference maker. How do you evaluate the running back position at this point?
Chris, I think that we probably devalued them too much in terms of how we talk about it and look at it, because we're basing it off of what round did they get picked and all that. But look at the teams that are going to playoffs, going deep into playoffs, going to Super Bowls. The running game is still a big part of what they do, and it's a big backs league. Last year, the top 10 running backs in the NFL, Chris, 7 of them averaged 220 pounds or more in terms of weight. Size does matter in the NFL right now in the running back game. And that's what we're looking for, beating up on smaller defenses, because that's what we're getting out of the college ranks. And a lot more teams are playing more nickel and dime than they are regular base defenses.
And it's not just starting running back jobs that we're looking at, because this day and age you need 2-3 running backs who are able to carry a lot of the load. And when you look to the Arizona Cardinals, you're looking at that number 2 running back position. Who do you see it being between, and how do you think it goes?
Yeah, it is for the number 2 spot, because James Conner, boy, he really seized it last year, didn't he, in his first year in Arizona? So RB1 is determined. Eno Benjamin has been around for a little while, but this year in the 6th round, Arizona drafted Keontae Ingram out of USC, who is a hard charger, thumping type of a running back, and that will be the battle. And Ingram actually fits the profile of what James Conner gives you more than Benjamin does. Benjamin's a little more of the scat back, quick variety. Keontae Ingram, he will come at you and drop his shoulders on you a little more like James Conner. That'll be a fun battle for Arizona, because they do want to run the ball some, even though they've got all those great wide receivers on the outside. And remember, Nuke Hopkins is going to be out for 6 games. They made the big move for Hollywood Brown outside. When you get them all together, you'll have Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, right? You'll have Rondale Moore. You'll have A.J. Green. At some point, someone's going to have some good lanes to run the football. Who will be those top guy? Who will be the top guy behind James Conner?
Yeah, at the wide receiver position without Hopkins for, it looks like 6 games. How do they get by those first few without their top receiver?
I think they get by with the trade with Hollywood Brown, a guy that they liked coming out, a guy that they like very much, a guy that connects very well with his quarterback because they played together in college, Kyler Murray. And then you have the other guys who are filling in quite well already. Rondale Moore gives you all types of plays, from the slot, out wide, jet sweep. You can bring him back and make him a runner if you want to. And, of course, A.J. Green, the big-time veteran, continues to roll on. They will be fine until Hopkins gets back. Imagine when he does and you're going to those 4 wide receiver sets, and those are the 4 that you're throwing out there. Oh, yeah, by the way, they made a trade for Zach Ertz last year, and they drafted Trey McBride out of Colorado State for another tight end. Weapons targets will not be an issue for Arizona.
Position battles to watch in the NFC West with Charles Davis. Let's move to the Seahawks. Might be the only team that doesn't challenge for a postseason berth this year, although I think Pete Carroll would like to say otherwise. He's been outspoken about Drew Lock being the top picked quarterback in this draft if he was in this draft. The fact is he's not. We've kind of see what Drew Lock has been able to do, and we've seen what Pete Carroll has wanted to do. Even with Russell Wilson at quarterback, it's always been about the running back position for Pete Carroll. What do you see with that battle?
Well, when you go back to the Drew Lock thing, the last time Seattle was in this position, Chris, in my estimation, where they were talked about not being in playoff contention, they found a way to make the playoffs. But to your point, Russell Wilson was the quarterback of that team, not Drew Lock, so there's a lot left to prove. You're right about Pete Carroll and runners. He always wants to have a strong running game, help out his defense, set the tone for his offense. So to me, the battle is at RB1, because Chris Carson's been dinged up the last few years. So I'm saying Rashad Penny, off of the strength of his best season as a pro, a former first-round pick, is going to battle their number 2 pick this year, Kenneth Walker, maybe the top running back coming out of college. It was right there with Breece Hall out of Iowa State. If they're going to be that run-heavy team that Seattle wants to be, Pete Carroll loves to have that one guy seize the ball, and Kenneth Walker did it so well in his 1 year at Michigan State and did it prior to that while at Wake Forest for a couple of seasons. So if they can get back to playing that Seattle Seahawks football on offense, and by the way, they drafted 2 rookie offensive tackles. Okay, Charles Cross and Abe Lucas, they may both start day 1. Can those guys adapt to not just pass protecting as they did in college, but moving people in the run game to help out Kenneth Walker? That's where I think the battle is for Seattle.
And the battle is in the division. It's going to be really tough having to play the Cardinals twice, the Rams twice, the 49ers twice. When you look at this division as a whole, last couple years, I think you would call it the best division in football. This year, I don't know because of what that other West division looks like in the AFC. How do you see it at this point shaping up with the Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions, as the favorites to win the division?
Yeah, and I think that they should be, because it's a Rams team that I think is still hungry for more. Matthew Stafford, remember, getting 1 Super Bowl after all he went through in Detroit, I don't think that's enough for him. I think he's still trying to make up for those years when he had to play hurt and battle from behind all the time. San Francisco's got to figure it out at quarterback. Arizona's got to show that they can finish. The last month of the season has always been a struggle for them under Cliff Kingsbury, and Seattle's your wild card. I'm one of those people that never counts out Pete Carroll, because every time you do, you end up with egg on your face. The last time, as I mentioned, where we all thought they had no shot of making the playoffs, I predicted that they would go to the playoffs and won a nice little, it wasn't a monetary wager, but a nice little, hey, I can get at you wager with a good friend of mine, because I said, this team knows how to win, and Pete Carroll's determined to get them back into that winner's circle. So they are fourth right now, but I never count them out.
All right, Charles Davis learns from past mistakes, and the Seattle Seahawks never to be taken lightly, especially with the 12s there and a great home field advantage. He's looking at the battles at different positions for all four teams. It's all running back positions other than in San Francisco, Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance for a team that made it to the NFC Championship game a season ago. Now the Rams going to be involved in a marquee Christmas game on CBS as they face a familiar foe in Russell Wilson and the Broncos. It's at SoFi Stadium Christmas Day. It's also streaming on Paramount Plus and live Slime Vision on Nickelodeon as well. A lot of talent and a lot of hope. Win total set at 10.5 this season. They're the favorites to win the NFC East at -110, plus 750 to win the NFC, and 18-1 to win Super Bowl 57. Let's get Charles Davis in here to look at position battles for the Cowboys and every NFC East team. And Charles, this is interesting because you are looking at the running back room, and the highest paid running back in the NFL again next season is Ezekiel Elliott.
Yeah, these are words I'd really never expected to say during the height of his career. Ezekiel Elliott having to battle Tony Pollard to be RB1, because it seemed like Tony Pollard was brought in to spell him from time to time, but Ezekiel Elliott would be the primary runner. And I thought that last year there was a little bit of a concession towards Pollard's really getting better and coming on. We saw Zeke slim down, try and get quicker, the whole thing. He is still their number one running back. He is still the guy they count on between the tackles to move the sticks. But Pollard gives them explosive runs and gets to the second and third level so quickly. Things that Ezekiel Elliott is more than capable of doing, but we haven't seen it as much in recent times. So don't be surprised if there's a little bit more of a battle there. I fully expect Ezekiel Elliott to still be RB1 when they start the season. But if Pollard keeps breaking off the runs we've seen in the last two seasons, he's going to get even more touches and more opportunities in that Dallas offense.
Zeke around 4 yards per carry. Pollard was 5.5 or so yards per pop. Do you think he gets more carries and it should be more 50-50 because of the differences in these two guys? I mean, we always go to the old thunder and lightning sort of thing, but they are two different backs, and Pollard has that burst.
Yeah, I think it becomes more of a 50-50 if indeed Ezekiel Elliott does not show those runs that we've seen in the past. If he becomes more of I hate to use this word plotter because he's not, but if all of a sudden the runs aren't getting that occasional 10, 15-yard pop as we've seen before, then Pollard will get more of those opportunities as the Cowboys continue to try and expand their offense and play more of a lightning style deal. Look at all the receivers they've loaded up on. Look at the division they're in. I think the Cowboys think that in the NFC East, scoring points and playing from the front is a really good thing. And I think that they have the right formula for that. So we'll see how that develops. Zeke will be the guy to begin, but he better not rest on his laurels. Pollard's really coming on.
Does so much. Running game, passing game, and kick return game. Had a kick return for a touchdown as well. Let's move to the Eagles in a position battle there. You're looking at a linebacker battle between a pretty young guy coming off a really productive year and a rookie with first-round talent who ended up slipping to the third.
Yeah, and I'm talking about you're talking about TJ Edwards, who last year had a very nice year for the Philadelphia Eagles at inside linebacker, middle linebacker, and Nakobe Dean coming out of Georgia, who as we headed into the draft process, many thought was the best linebacker of the bunch. And I'm not saying that he's not, but there was an injury that was suffered by Nakobe Dean at the combine, a pectoral injury. And there was debate on whether rest would heal it or if he needed surgery, which I think was a big reason why he actually slid to the third round. People talk about size. I don't buy that. Linebackers have been getting smaller over the years and still being productive. I liken Nakobe Dean to Jonathan Vilma coming out of college because of the way they play the game with intelligence, the way they play with passion, they line their teams up correctly, and they make plays. And by the way, neither one of them misses very many tackles. I mean, it's hard to find missed tackles when you watch their game film. Dean is going to go in as a guy where the Eagles have wanted to upgrade that linebacker position for a while. And you said it best, Chris. He's a first-round pick that they're getting in the third round. If he is healthy, I think he's going to win that job and hold it down for a long time to come and give them that presence in the middle that they've been lacking for a little while now. Not that TJ Edwards didn't do a good job. He did. But Dean, I think, can be special.
Really good value there if he gets healthy and shows what he did in college for a third-round pick. That's quite something. Let's move on to the Giants. And you're looking at the number 2 wide receiver spot between this year's second-round pick and the team's second-round pick from 6 years ago. Yeah,
we're talking about Sterling Shepard, the incumbent, and Wan'Dale Robinson out of Kentucky, the second-round pick this year. And to me, it was a surprise that Wan'Dale Robinson came off the board this early. You know, I'm used to bigger receivers going early, and by day 3, we start to take some of those smaller lightning bug guys. And Wan'Dale Robinson, a little more size like a Calvin Austin out of Memphis State. So when you look at them, you know what you're getting in terms of we can run some good gadget plays. Can they make the plays you need across the middle? The good thing Wan'Dale Robinson has going for him is he's a former running back. So he understands how to navigate through traffic. He's got good contact balance when he bounces off of people downfield. Size, yeah, we'll see how that plays. Remember, Sterling Shepard isn't a huge guy either. But it's much more so for me, what is Sterling Shepard's health, Chris? Because the last couple of years, that's been a question mark for him. Concussions and other injuries have limited his playing time. He opens the door for this youngster out of Kentucky and Brian Daboll's new offense coming from Buffalo. Wan'Dale Robinson is Cole Beasley. Remember Cole Beasley 2 years ago in Buffalo's offense was second-team All-Pro working out of the slot. I think that's how they see Wan'Dale Robinson. So Sterling Shepard's got his work cut out for him to be wide receiver 2 or 3 because we still have to find out what's going on with Kadarius Toney there. And Kenny Golladay was signed as a big-time free agent last year. They want a full season out of him.
Yeah, what is going on with Kadarius Toney, and what do you see for him?
Yeah, that is one of the great mysteries out there for us because we're not on the total inside, but you hear about work ethic, you hear about, attention to detail, you hear about him, wanting to quote unquote be there, that sort of a deal. So if he's that type of a guy with a brand new management with Brian Daboll and Joe Shane as the general manager, if there's a chance and he's not going to be that guy, I don't think they'll stick with him very long. And Wan'Dale Robinson's selection might be a hedge just in case Kadarius Toney won't be a Giant anymore.
New regime with the Giants, new nickname for Washington. The Commanders, they went out, and now they have a new look quarterback, Carson Wentz, who was in Indianapolis last season. They're looking to bring him back into the NFC East and do some damage like he did with the Eagles. They also drafted Sam Howell.
Yeah, they did, and my battle is not as much for Carson Wentz because they went out and got him. So he's QB1 until further notice. Plus, when you show up to the press conference dressed in the Commander's colors like he did, had the gold shirt and the garnet jacket, he's got to be QB1 right out of the gate, doesn't he? He's got to get points for that. To me, the battle is Taylor Heineke, who people love and adore the way he plays, how hard he plays. The team's always trying to upgrade over him. Thus, they drafted Sam Howell, who went in the 5th round, which was later than any of us expected, the youngster out of North Carolina. I think that's the battle for QB2. Heineke, the gritty, scrappy guy who's earned his way, beat every odd going, played better than what people expected, gave Tom Brady a tussle in the playoffs 2 years ago, versus Sam Howell, who prior to this year's draft, going into last season, Chris, many of us talent evaluators had Sam Howell as the best quarterback in the draft headed into the draft. He ended up going in the 5th round. The talent's still there. Now he's got to battle Heineke for the backup spot, and hopefully for him, down the road, taking on Carson Wentz for QB1. But I think right now it's Wentz's job and the other guys now to fill in behind him, hoping to get their shot later.
QB2 always important behind Carson Wentz with his injury history. Charles, this was the worst division in football a couple of years ago. I think it's gotten a little bit better, a lot more competitive. The Eagles made the postseason last year. The Commanders are a team that has the defense to allow them to compete. What do you see in the NFC East this season?
Well, I think it has gotten better, but it's still a division. And let's face it, it's the NFL. So quarterbacks rule, right? So if you're going to go to the top quarterback in the division, you go to Dallas with Dak Prescott. Jalen Hurts trying to seize the job in Philadelphia. You remember the draft move they made where they got a second first-round pick for next year? That means this year's a referendum on Jalen Hurts in Philly. Does he seize this team fully, or do they use that pick on a quarterback in a quarterback-rich draft next year? Washington been trying to find their quarterback for a while. Carson Wentz, the latest guy to come in to get auditioned, and we all know what's going on with Daniel Jones in New York. He has to prove himself, and they didn't pick up his fifth-year option. So right now, it's Dallas's division because of quarterback rules. Remember, Philly made it last year. Jalen Hurts is determined to prove he is the guy in Philadelphia, and they put weapons around him to give him every opportunity.
Charles Davis with us here on CBS Sports HQ, looking at position battles in the NFC, particularly the NFC East. Let's recap what he's looking at, and it's interesting in Dallas. Ezekiel Elliott looking over his shoulder a little bit as Tony Pollard continues to take more and more carries and more touches and break more and more big ones. In Philadelphia, it's the linebacker position. At New York, it's wide receiver 2, Sterling Shepard, Wan'Dale Robinson, a couple of second-round picks separated by 6 years, and that backup quarterback position in Washington. Full schedule release is coming up tomorrow. Thursday night, we have all your coverage here on CBS Sports HQ beginning at 7 Eastern with analysts Danny Cannell, Josina Anderson, Bryant McFadden, and BMAC is going to be joining us next.
Let's welcome in our Bryant McFadden. We are looking at position battles with each team in the NFC North. Let's start with the Packers there. And of course, it has to do with who's going to be the best target, the best wide receiver for Aaron Rodgers.
No question. I think this might be the first time, Amanda, in Aaron Rodgers' career in Green Bay as a starting quarterback, where he's going into camp not knowing who his number one wide receiver will be. You talked about all the success he had with Devontae. Devontae played there in Green Bay for 8 years. I mean, eventually became the number one target, one of the best wide receivers, not just on the team, but clearly in the National Football League. You look at some of his latter years there in Green Bay. So who will emerge to be the number one guy? That's a big, important question, because looking at the success Aaron Rodgers has had, he's always had the luxury of having a number one guy. So when you look at the depth chart, will it be Allen Lazard? Will it be rookie Christian Watson, Sammy Watkins, veteran who they brought in, Randall Cobb, Rodgers? I mean, we don't know. And I think they will find out who that number one guy will, hopefully sooner than later. But if they don't, man, it will be a cast of pass catchers being able to benefit from the passes coming from Aaron Rodgers. And that's unfamiliar territory based on what Aaron Rodgers has had the luxury of throwing to throughout his time there in Green Bay.
So if you had to make a guess, we can pull up that list again. Who do you think is going to be his wide receiver one there?
I mean, I think to start off, I think it will be Allen Lazard. You know, he has experience playing with Aaron Rodgers. Sammy Watkins has been in the league 9 years, but this will be his first tenure with the Green Bay Packers. So I go with the guy who seems to be, you know, his trajectory is going upward. So I go with Allen Lazard.
I also know a lot of people did like them landing Christian Watson, but of course he is a rookie there. More experience with Lazard by all means. Let's go to the Vikings and let's go to your specialty here, B-Mac. You're looking at the cornerbacks here. Andrew Booth Jr. going up against Cameron Dantzler. The Vikings traded up to get Booth. I know a lot of teams had questions about his medical history. So how does he stack up in this position battle?
I mean, Booth is a talented guy. It's safe to say, Amanda, if he was healthy, being able to participate at the combine and throughout his pro day, he probably would have got drafted in the first round. But because of the injury concerns, he fell to the second round. The Vikings went up to make that move, a big move. But will he have an opportunity to really showcase what type of player he is, eventually becoming the starter? I think that is a very, very interesting position battle to factor in and to watch for the Minnesota Vikings. When you look at what they have opposite of Patrick Peterson, you have a lot of unproven guys. You got Cameron Dantzler, who will be coming into year 3. You got Booth. Chris Boyd is there, Harrison Hand, a lot of guys who lack experience. So me personally, seeing exactly how that position battle will work itself out opposite of Patrick Peterson is going to be a fun, entertaining watch. And don't forget about not knowing who the nickel guy will be as well. Remember, Mackenzie Alexander, he's no longer there. He was a guy who commanded the slot corner for quite some time there and throughout his time in Minnesota. They have to also answer that question as well outside of who will play opposite of Patrick Peterson in the secondary.
Shout out to Patrick Peterson, by the way. We'll talk about your podcast here in a little bit. Let's talk about the Lions, though. First, position battle you're watching here. It's all about wide receiver 3 in the mix now. Among the guys already there, Jameson Williams, who they traded up all the way to 12 to snag. B-Mac.
Oh, no question. It's safe to say when all of their pass catchers are healthy, including Jameson Williams, you know exactly who the top 3 guys will be when it comes to the wide receivers. But with him not potentially being healthy, who will fill the shoes left by Jameson, right? When you look at when they're healthy, you got Jameson, you got DJ Chark, Amon-Ra St. Brown. But then with Jameson potentially being on the PUP list, will it be Quintez Cephas? Will it be Josh Reynolds? Will it be Khalif Raymond? And this is a team, offensively, they love to utilize 3 wide receiver sets. And knowing that they went up to go get Jameson, they believe this will be basically the vocal point of their offense. But for right now, let's think about the hypothetical. He might not be ready by the start of the season. So who will capture that 3rd wide receiver spot for the Detroit Lions and ultimately be a big-time contributor from Jared Goff? That's a big question for me.
Finally, in this division, we land on the Bears. They have not had a winning season since 2018. They hit 500 a couple times, but that is not good enough there. What position battle are you watching with the Bears?
Well, the offensive tackle positions for the Chicago Bears on the offensive side. You know, who will command the right tackle spot? Who will command the left tackle spot? That's a big time question because, of course, you have a second-year quarterback in Justin Fields. And you look at what they've been doing so far. I mean, Larry Borom is a guy who was drafted to play the right tackle, but remember, he played left tackle at Missouri. Then Tevin Jenkins, a guy who they selected in the 2nd round. Oh, by the way, Larry and Tevin both were drafted last year. He was a guy who played right tackle in college, but they drafted him to play the left side. Right? So now what we're seeing right before the draft, when they were on the grass, they actually had Larry playing the left side and they had Tevin playing the right side. So me personally, I think that's the best ideal spot for both guys because of the experience they've been able to showcase coming from the collegiate ranks, playing the left side pretty well for Larry and Tevin playing the right side. I think that is a unique position battle because it might not be a big market value when it comes to positional rankings and what to watch out for, but we know how important both tackles are, especially for your quarterback when he's such a young guy. So me personally, will we see Larry go back to his original spot, commanding the left side of the line, and will we see Tevin going back to his original spot, commanding the right side of the line?
B-Mac, looking at this division as a whole, who comes out on top? I mean, is it easily the Packers to lose? I don't know if Pat P has given you a lot of confidence in this Vikings team that they can give them a run for their money.
I mean, right now, yes, it's Green Bay's division to lose. They've dominated this division for quite some time. But to answer your question, I think it's the Vikings' chance to step up, right? Look at the value, plus 260. I'll throw something on Minnesota right now, and here's why. They have an experienced quarterback. He's been oftentimes criticized, but yet and still, he's been able to give you sufficient numbers. You look at what is surrounding him. That's the most important thing. This offensive line will be better. Running back-wise, we know who Dalvin Cook is. Wide receiver-wise, listen, they got guys that can go up and do big-time things, led by Justin Gritty Man Jefferson. And then defensively, add in Smith along with Danielle Hunter, solidifying the secondary. I mean, this is a team on paper right now. They can go toe-to-toe with the Green Bay Packers. So me personally, looking at the value plus 260, I'm willing to throw something on the Minnesota Vikings to win this division, the NFC North, that is.
B-Mac, hang on just a second. Let's recap your position battles here in the NFC North, going through them there. Packers, it's all about who Aaron Rodgers is going to be throwing to, finding his new wide receiver 1 in replacement there for Devontae Adams. The Vikings, we're looking at the cornerbacks there, and the newbie, the rookie Andrew Booth Jr., another rookie in the mix there with the Lions looking at wide receiver 3. They traded up all the way to 12 to get Jameson Williams, and Chicago Bears the left and right tackles. Taking a look at those career earnings for Tom Brady, nearly $303 million so far through 22 seasons. But of course, as we found out this week, he'll be making $37.5 million per year, $375 total over 10 years, after he finally decides to leave football. But you never know when that's going to happen. Let's welcome in Bryant McFadden here, going over position battles. Let's go to the Bucs here. What is the position battle you're looking at when it comes to the Bucs? And I know one of them, and it has to do with Tom Brady, sort of. So let's start there.
Well, I guess, you look at the Bucs, it's only right if I highlight the here and now, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and then attack their future. So right now, the here and now will be for me, who will command the guard position, the left guard position? Remember, Ali Marpet unexpectedly retired, right? And now with Tom Brady returning, it's imperative that they find a consistent guy to replace Ali. When you look at the names, they went out and draft Luke Gadecki in the second round. Remember, Luke played the right tackle position, but so many teams were mesmerized with his talent. They believe he can be an ultimately dominating guard. And I do believe he will get the first crack at the guard position. So will a rookie be able to solidify his spot on the offensive line to protect the GOAT Tom Brady? That will be a big-time storyline if that's the case. And most importantly, Amanda, will he be able to do what he's supposed to do so we don't see musical chairs at the left guard position? And outside of that, let's transition to the future. Amanda, on that graphic, you highlighted so many different things associated with Tom Brady. But the biggest thing that is now associated with Tom Brady, this offer, 10 years, $375 million to work 1 day a week calling games. So it's safe to say that would be very, very appealing for Tom Brady in regards to walking away from the game officially at the end of the season. So the other position battle that I'm watching is the successor to Tom Brady on the roster right now. When you look at the guys in Blaine Gabbert, when you look at Kyle Trask, who they drafted over a year ago, I mean, these are the two guys that will definitely be competing for the backup job for this year behind Tom Brady. But it's safe to say whoever solidifies the backup job this year will probably walk into the starting job if Tom Brady decides to retire in 2023. That would be a big time story, I think, going into camp, not to mention when you look at what potentially could happen at the end of this season in 2022, especially knowing that when you retire, you're walking into a situation where you have $375 million guaranteed waiting on you.
We don't even know if he's going to be good or not. He may be terrible.
Exactly.
He may
be
so bad.
Yes. It's just the name alone gives you that opportunity. Yeah, you're right. He might not be good, but who cares? 375 is waiting. We
would give you a chance, B-Mac. I think you'd be great at that, and you deserve that sort of money there. Let's go to the Saints. By the way, we're both hair people. I want you to know, if you haven't checked it out, have you seen Jameis Winston's new hair? He's grown it out. He likes the hair. He feels good. He's got the mustache.
He has that thick Apollo Creed mustache.
Yeah. Exactly. Totally off topic, and I know our producer's like, what are you doing right now? We're running out of time. Let's talk about a position battle, though, when it comes to the Saints.
Yeah, you talked about Jameis Winston. We know how important the left tackle spot is for the quarterback, right? Remember, Terron Armstead went on and took all the money from the Miami Dolphins, so that left side open. We thought it would potentially be James Hurst, but remember, they went out and utilized one of their first-round selections on Trevor Penning, a talented, massive tackle from Northern Iowa. So that's the position battle that I'm watching out for. Who will emerge to be the number one guy coming out of training camp? Will it be James Hurst? Will it be Trevor Penning? Many people believe Penning has the inside track, but we have to wait and see because, you know, sometimes rookies go through rookie pains, especially growing pains, especially in training camp. But he should be the future face at the left tackle position at some point in time throughout his career. That's why they drafted him in the first round. But how soon will that happen? We have to wait and see.
I love the next two teams here because it has to do with quarterbacks that were eventually at some point taken in the draft. Let's go to the Panthers there. The battle you're watching, of course, has to do between Sam Darnold and Matt Corral. A lot of people thought Matt Corral was going to be a first rounder. He was their QB1. And then over the course of a couple months, he fell and fell and fell. They finally took him in the third round. Break down this battle for us.
Yeah, it's all about the quarterback battle for Carolina. I mean, we've heard so many veteran quarterbacks being associated with the Panthers, basically trying to replace Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is still there, but if you go back and look at what happened a year ago, injuries and bad play led to other opportunities for other guys at the quarterback position. Yes, they took a chance on Matt Corral in the third round, but the leash is extremely short, I believe, for Sam Darnold. If Matt Corral can really learn the playbook fast, show the team he can be a guy that can orchestrate the offense efficiently, and Sam Darnold struggles, this might be an opportunity where we see a young rookie quarterback emerge to be the guy in Carolina. And it wouldn't be surprising as well based on how disappointing Sam Darnold has been so far throughout his tenure there in Carolina.
All right, finally, the Falcons. And I do want to mention on Pete Prisco's Power Rankings, the Falcons came in dead last. I believe you're on that show with us to talk about it there. And the battle has to do with Marcus Mariota and the guy who was eventually the second quarterback taken in the draft, Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, Desmond Ridder, a lot of people felt like he would potentially go in the first round. Was there in the third round for Atlanta. I love that pick, by the way. So that's the position battle that I'm watching out for. Marcus Mariota, they brought him in to be the starter because there was no one else, Amanda. There was no one else. So right now, he is the lead dog at that spot. But will he be able to keep that spot intact? I don't know. And you better believe it will be an open competition because, like you said, with Pete Prisco and his rankings, he has the Falcons dead last. So it's not like they have anything to hope for. It's all about building towards the future. And get this, if you have a bad season this year, it's safe to say you will be in the thick of things when it comes to drafting a franchise-like quarterback next year, especially in the first round. So if Marcus and the offense is struggling in camp or in the beginning of the season, there's no need to wait and see exactly what can happen if you keep him there. Throw out the young fella, because if Desmond can show the organization, you know what? I am a guy. When given the opportunity and adding more pieces around me, I can provide wins for us. And that might detour the organization from taking a chance on another quarterback next year. But who knows? We might see this play out throughout training camp. They might go into the season knowing that Desmond was the better option. He outperformed Marcus, and he might go into the season as a starting quarterback. But guess what, Amanda? We have to wait and see how it all plays out throughout training camp.
Look in your crystal ball. Who gets the start first, Matt Corral or Desmond Ridder?
Ooh. I'll say Desmond Ridder, and here's why. Christian McCaffrey healthy makes the entire offense in Carolina better. Christian McCaffrey healthy will make Sam Darnold better. And that would take pressure off Sam Darnold's plate if CMC is in the lineup. When you look at Atlanta, they don't have the same resources. Cordell Patterson, who will be the #1 running back, I love what he provides when it comes to energy and how he fights. But remember, this is his first time being a full-time running back, especially as the starter. And Kyle Pitts. But outside of that, they don't have a lot to work with. So I think it will, the lack of talent on the offensive end will definitely hinder Marcus and will lead to an opportunity for Desmond.
If Christian McCaffrey is healthy, that is always a big if. Let's look at the division as a whole. Let's look at the odds there. It's the Bucs and pretty much everyone else. The Bucs -350, followed up by the Saints and then the Panthers and Falcons. You got any faith in the Saints in this division, B-Mac?
Just a little bit, but remember, they have a new head coach. You know, Dennis Allen is the new head coach. He's been a head coach before in the National Football League. It didn't work out well. I think this opportunity will work out differently, but yet and still, that's a big ask. And you look at Tampa, they lost a few pieces, but they were extremely aggressive as well, trying to improve their football team on both sides of the football. I don't usually like to go chalk. I like to go with the best value, but in this situation with the NFC South, give me the Buccaneers.
Yeah, there's really no question there. B-Mac, thank you so much. Let's recap which position battles he has going down here in the NFC South, starting with the Bucs. Look, he's looking at that left guard position, but really he wants to know who's going to be Tom Brady's successor, especially if he has all that money waiting for him in the TV booth just once a week. Just got to show up to get that check. New Orleans Saints there between James Hurst and Trevor Penning, who went in the first round. Carolina Panthers and Atlanta Falcons there, the veteran quarterbacks versus the rookie. Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.